In this video, we'll add third-party libraries with CocoaPods. This will allow us to easily set our poster image. Now back in Xcode, I'm going to go in here and just add a little more room, move these guys over so that we can put our poster image view here. I'm going to go down to the object library and pull up a image view. I'm going to drag that right here onto our cell. We'll need to create an outlet for our image view to our custom cell class. So in order to do that, remember we have to click on something within the cell, and then when we pull up our assistant editor, up here where it says automatic, we'll choose the movie cell. Now what I can do is just click on the image view, control drag here. It's important that you do not call this image view. This will conflict with the built-in image view that comes with the cell. So call this something like poster view instead. So let's go to our movies view controller. We're going to scroll down to the self_index_path method where we've been setting up our cell. The first thing we need to do is get the URL for where the image is stored on the API. Let's go to the API docs to get some more information. There's just a few special instructions for this API when getting the image. I'm going to click over here on configuration, and it says to build an image URL, you will need 3 pieces of data: the base URL, size, and file path. Simply combine them all together and you will have a qualified URL. Here's an example. So here's the base URL. This won't change from image to image. What will change is this, which is the file path. That's what we're going to go and index into on the API. This right here will set the width. So for now, let's copy the base URL and the width. Let's go ahead and create a constant to hold the base URL, which we just copied over from the docs. Now we'll use the same technique as we used to get the title and overview to get the file path for the image. Let's go back to the sample request that we loaded in our browser to see what the name of that key is. Okay, well this sounds like it, poster path. We can use the key poster path in order to get the rest of the file path to complete our image URL. We'll create a constant for poster path, and we'll index into movie at the key poster path, and that will return a string. Finally, let's put those together into the full URL in order to get our image. We can say let image URL, and it's going to be an ins URL, and here we can say base URL plus poster path. Now, the next logical thing would be to do the same thing we did for our title label and our overview label, right? We'd say something like cell.posterView equals set image URL. But unfortunately, that method doesn't exist. But no worries, there's plenty of third-party libraries in CocoaPods that will do this exact thing. Let's head to the terminal and set up some CocoaPods. Now, sometimes you've saved your Xcode project somewhere that's just hard to navigate to using the terminal if you're not very familiar with it. But we can actually use some of the modern tools in Finder in conjunction with terminal. First in the console, I'll type in CD for change directory. Now I'll use Command Space to open the Spotlight and type in the name of my project. Okay, I can see it's right here. I can just drag this directly onto my terminal. And now when I push enter, and PWD for print working directory, I can see that I'm actually in my movie viewer project. If I hit LS, I can see files within my project folder. If I do LS-A, I can see all the files, including hidden files. Now, in order to use CocoaPods, you'll first need to create a pod file. You can do this by doing pod init. Now, if I hit LS-A, I can see that I have this new file called a pod file. I'm going to use the command open space dot to open this folder, and I'm going to drag my pod file down into Xcode in order to open it in Xcode. Uncomment out this use framework because we want to use frameworks. And right here, we're going to add the name of any CocoaPods that we want to import. CocoaPods.wannadly.com is a good resource for finding CocoaPods. If I search, say, networking, then it brings up AFNetworking as the second hit, and that's what we're going to use. If I go over here to the docs, I can see how to get started and how to install this. So I'm going to use this pod AFNetworking. I'm going to copy that and go back to my pod file. Sometimes you may be working with multiple pod files and you'll add them right here. I'm going to save this and close this. Now back in terminal, I'm going to run pod install. This is going to load all the pod files into your project, so it might take a moment. Okay, now that the pod has been installed, we've got some new information. Notice here that it says, please close any current Xcode sessions and use movieviewer.xc workspace for this project from now on. So before we opened the Xcode project, but now we're going to use the Xcode workspace. Also, there's this file called podfile.lock. If we say cat podfile.lock, we have all of the versions that we used locked here. This way, the versions won't change unless we specifically want them to. So I'm going to go back to Xcode and close this session. So this time, let's open up the workspace file. So now over here, you can see that I have one more file here, and it's all of the pod files. And I have my normal movie viewer project over here also. I'm going to click on my movie view controller file. Now, just like we imported UIKit here, we'll also import our AFNetworking. Now, if this isn't auto-completing for you, make sure you do a Command-Shift-K to clean the file and then a Command-B to build. I find that often when I add pod files, I have to clean and build before everything can talk to each other correctly. Now that we've imported AFNetworking, we can go down to where we set up our cell, and hopefully we'll have a new method to set our image. We'll do cell.posterView.setImageWithURL. Yep, there it is. And we'll put our URL that we made here, image URL. Looks like we have an error, and Xcode is wanting us to unwrap this optional value, and we'll say, yes, Xcode, go ahead and unwrap that, and let's run our app. And our app is looking like a real Rotten Tomatoes style movie viewer. Now that you've got your project started, go and try to get as many optional features as you can.